We talked about one game in which the quarterback was a really big deal. And now here's a second game in which I think the quarterback situation is also a really big deal. We have Rice on the road at UTSA, not to juxtapose our recent SEC blockbuster with something to upstage it, but UTSA is a 14.5-point home favorite, and this game carries an over-under of 58.5 points. Kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. JT Daniels left last game with an injury, I put that in quotes, and he's doubtful to play. Look, it was concussion likely. They tagged it as a head injury, but he still played, man. That's a little concerning considering he did not remember much after the hit. Why was he still in the game? It came late in the game, and then a week for something that's potentially that severe, not enough time to recover. They call him doubtful. I call him out. I had a whole thing about getting ahead of line movement because I wrote this earlier in the day, and of course the news broke midday, so I had to scrap a lot of stuff that I had here. I hope you did. I did get ahead of the line movement before it was actually reported that Daniels was doubtful. Now that's a moot point as we move through 14. But before the bye week, if you're looking at UTSA, they were 1-3. Their lone win came in a very close margin over Texas State. Frank Harris was not healthy. Since then, they're 5-0. Frank Harris has been a lot better. However, they are missing one of their top receivers, JT Clark. He's now undergoing season-ending surgery, and that's been a big deal not having him in the lineup, of course. You also have to look at the strength of schedule in this 5-game win streak. Temple, UAB, FAU, East Carolina, North Texas. No teams above 95th in the power ratings baseline that I use. Only FAU is even above 105th, so we're talking about a pretty weak strength of schedule there. Rice, on the other hand, they've been really competitive lately. Crushed Tulsa. Not exactly a big resume builder, but they took Tulane to the final gun, and they played right with SMU the whole game. So to me, it really comes down to who these teams have played lately when you compare recent performance and splits. Again, JT Daniels being out is tough. If for some reason that reverses and he's trending toward playing, I wouldn't be afraid to jump on Rice because I think that this is a team that, even though the record hasn't been as good lately, they've been playing better football against better competition than UTSA. One thing on Rice's defense that they do really well, they're a big bend but don't break. So you can move the ball down the field on them, but when they get backed up, they hold you to field goals more so than touchdowns. That keeps them in games. UTSA is 54th in points per quality possessions, but they are better in the red zone over the last 3 games. Again, that has a little bit to do with their strength of schedule versus their red zone performance on the season as a whole.
I got to start by talking again as a reminder about my numbers, my model, not explicitly accounting for a JT Daniels potential injury here or unavailability here. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about what the model says, the unit rankings, the projected spread, all those things. Watchability with this one's 5.5. The model, without knowing the JT Daniels news explicitly, has UTSA -8. Again, I'm not going to suggest that, JT Daniels is worth 6.5 points to the spread. I don't think that's the case. But it doesn't know about JT Daniels at all. So perhaps somewhere between the 8 and 14.5 is where the model would make it if JT Daniels was playing in this game. 69% win expectancy for the Roadrunners. UTSA, SMU, Tulane, all 5-0 in conference play. Roadrunners closed the season with a trip to Tulane. So this week's game against Rice and next week against USF are huge to try to remain undefeated going into that game. This game is at UTSA. UTSA offense, the best unit on the field. You talk about Frank Harris, how they're playing here recently. Those advantages should be enough to keep the Roadrunners unbeaten in conference play. Again, not even accounting for the fact that JT Daniels might not play, which of course does hinder Rice and that offense, which has been their better unit this season. The defense continues to struggle for Rice. They rank number 120 nationally. 2 consecutive losses in the last 2 weeks. Brett, you mentioned that the Owls were playing very well in those games, very competitive against good competition, Tulane and SMU. Because of that, Rice's power rating is actually up to a season best -5.1 and a number 87 ranking. The offense has been the primary reason here with JT Daniels at the helm in those games for the majority of them. They're up to a season best number 59 on the offensive side of the ball for Rice. So the defense concerning, the offense with JT Daniels in particular has been the bright spot. Bottom line, I have UTSA -8 in this game. It's a 29% chance that Rice snaps its 7-game losing streak in this series, Brett.
The replacement, Chase Jenkins, he's a freshman. He went 10 for 16 threw a pick. Again, it was against SMU, though, and SMU's defense is really good.
Yeah.
He was pressured 8 times, only took 1 sack. That's really encouraging to me. 9.9 ADOT, so not terrible. Dude, I really do think JT Daniels is worth 6.5 points of the spread. I know that's outlandish. Like, that's a very high number, but again, when you talk about JT Daniels' worth to the spread versus, say, Michael Penix, clear superior quarterback. That is not a competition. They're barely playing the same sport. But when you talk about the relative talent around the quarterback, JT Daniels is everything to this Rice team. Yes, they played in a bowl game last year at 5-7. Thank you, APR. This team is a lot better with JT Daniels than without him. Jenkins played okay. I wouldn't trust him for a full game, especially now that there's a little bit of tape out on him. So I really do think JT Daniels is worth that much.